Alright, well I've been sitting here a little bit too long, so we're going to go ahead and commentate a little bit on this match coming up. This match on the B side between Josh Perkins and Andy Patterson. Both players are considered at the A skill level, so they will be playing a race to 5. Now, anybody watching this may have noticed already, but the rules have changed a little bit for this tournament. He did decide to try to make it run a little bit faster, so it is essentially Texas Express 10 ball. Meaning that the 10 ball is an open shot. He is requiring a call on the 10 ball, but allowing it early and allowing slop on any other shot. So it is only call 10. He is allowing the 10 ball to count on the break. Now with most players, that 10 ball really doesn't tend to move too much on their break. We did, however, have a match earlier that lasted about a minute and 45 seconds as the player broke and made the 10 ball twice in a row, followed by a 1-10 combo to take out a big player 3-0 and put them in the B side. Now he's got a full view of this 1 ball. So I'm just going to go ahead and just play safe, send the cue ball opposite rail of the 1 ball. And he did lose that 1 a little too much, let it kind of come back down the table. He was really hoping that was going to go ahead and clip off that gray 6 ball and hold it up a little bit higher on the line. Alright, apologize for that break. Just had to kind of get a clarification on which player was which. But this is Andy Patterson at the table, making good use of the ball in hand that he received. From the angle here, it looks like Andy will probably go ahead and play just a little bit of side spin, come 2 rails back for that 7 ball. He may elect to just come in. There you go. So he was trying to bring the 2 rails just to bring it in line. Unfortunately, he did not make the 6 ball. This is going to leave Josh a nice shot here. He can go ahead and just play forward on this 6. He's probably just going to try just to stun it off the rail just a hair and leave himself a good angle on that 7 ball. And there you go. Now at this point, it's really player preference on how he wants to play this. He can roll this forward and come underneath the 8, take it down in the corner, or he can draw off to try to put it more into the side pocket. And he did elect to go more for the side pocket. Now he is a little on the wrong side of this 8 to come back for that 9, but he should still be able to draw back, maybe just take the 9 up. And he does go ahead and just take what table gave him. He just draws it back. So he's playing this 9 up. As long as he can touch that rail, he'll just go ahead and draw it over to the rail and just kind of slide it down for the 10 ball. And there you go. Just hits the rail, lets it slide over, takes the 10 in the corner, and that should put him to a 1-game lead. Oh, he does miss a side pocket. That pocket gets really big on those shots. It's an amazing angle that you don't normally ever worry about. But you've got to keep an eye on that. It can scratch in there really easily. That puts 1 on the board for Josh. He took real quick advantage of that misplayed safety by Andy. Now they are playing opponent rack. With the template rack, it's really not as big of a deal. You're not really going to get somebody putting you into a loose rack or anything of that nature. And with the 10 ball counting, they usually don't want to do rack your own because people will try to rack something around that. So Josh approaches the table for his break. It looks like Josh is somebody that tends to like the break just about maybe a couple inches off center. It is a really popular 10 ball break on the 7-foot table. And he gets the 1 ball to sink into the side pocket, and a beautiful kiss off that 9 ball, giving him a nice open view of the 2. The 2 ball being the turquoise ball in this set at the upper left-hand corner from this view. And he will just go ahead and play this with just a little bit of outside just to bring himself over to this side of the table. Most likely just taking a combo with the 3-9. And he plays a very well-controlled shot to bring himself in line for that 3-9. Having a little bit of angle on this, he should be able to float the cue ball out towards the foot rail. The 3 kind of come along with it so he doesn't end up with a locked up shot. You see he's concentrating, making sure he knows where both balls are going to end up after this. Struck it a little strong, but that was the idea, was that he was able to bring the cue over with the 3 and not get stuck. Most likely he'll just be playing a safety here, try to bring the 3 under the 10, and he runs into the 10 ball instead. However, he did place the 10 onto the 8, so it may not actually end up working out too bad for him. It's definitely going to add another level to this rack. The players are going to have to figure out how they want to approach that. So you see Andy taking his time, coming up to evaluate the rack. I imagine he's just going to go ahead and come around this 8-10. And he was actually trying to clip that on the way out. I can understand that, thinking, you get an open shot on the 4 ball, even if you come into the backside. But it was smart that he tried to go ahead and take that break out there while he had it. And he'll just be playing his 2 rails for the 5. 2. And he does get separation, but unfortunately I am not sure from this angle if he can still see that 5 ball clean. I believe he's probably going to be playing it safe here, try to bring the cue ball back up under the 8, 2 rails. Okay, he plays it a little too thin, a little soft. Play that same shot, but put a little bit of left-hand English on it, you can actually bring that 2 rails behind the 8 ball. Plays a much stronger safety. So Josh will come up to the table with a full view of this 5 ball. From what I can gather from this angle, it looks like he's probably just going to hit it with a little bit of inside English, come out over top of the 7 into the side. There you go. And he took a little bit of a simpler route, just made sure to just play it clean. Now, can't tell from here, his angle I don't believe is quite right for the 7 to the 8, so he's going to punch this out with a little bit of low right. He's going to pretty much drew that straight back. I don't think he got the punch that he wanted to come to the right. He does have an open shot on this 8 ball. He should be able to go ahead and cut that. And a very well-placed stroke to come back around behind the 10. He's going to take the 10 into the same corner and try to take himself into a 2-0 lead. Unfortunately, he got cursed by the commentator. And Andy will be coming up to the table with a decent shot on the 10 ball. That is a bit of a cut, but if he gets this, it'll put a little bit of confidence under him. This is actually going to be a big shot. If you miss this after you got an opportunity to give it back to you, it can kill your confidence. If you make it, it puts it through the roof. And there you go, and he brings it tied right back up 1-1. It's just an even race at this point. And he's now showed Josh that if you give him the opportunity, he will take it. So Josh will have to make sure that he is not making mistakes, leaving that open money ball. there you can actually see Casey Baker. That is the player that actually went ahead and took that earlier set in, like we said, about 1:45, snapping in 2 10s on the break and then a 110 combo. Talk about an insane victory over a very strong player. All right, Josh has got the rack set. Andy gets down, and we'll go ahead and take his break. Oh, and the 3-ball comes in just to send that cue ball home. I do believe he was actually going to be able to miss that corner pocket. Been seeing that a lot here today. A lot of the players deciding to take their 10-ball break from close to center. Now, it does play a lot different than when you play onto a 9-ball rack. With the 9-ball rack, you don't have as much energy coming back in the same direction because of the diamond allowing it to spread out. When you play straight into the rack on that 10-ball rack, it ends up pressuring actually the cue ball back a lot faster. And these players kind of getting themselves in trouble with it a lot. Now this is definitely where Josh has to take advantage of this and make sure that he makes a good run here, or at least plays out a few balls and then finds a good safe to finish out the set. You do not always have to run out the table, but you got to make sure that your opponent knows that you're going to punish them for any mistake they make. I had that issue actually in my match earlier today. My opponent was actually breaking, scratched multiple times, and I just managed to not quite get out, run a couple of balls, and then leave him with an open table with only a few left. And when your opponents are playing at this skill level, that is not something that you can take lightly and allow to happen. And Josh goes for the 10-ball there. Not a bad idea. Now, he did leave Andy on the wrong side of the 4. Andy could try to draw this, but that 10-ball is actually sitting pretty high up. You can't clearly tell from here, but that's sitting about a quarter of a diamond high. You have a big chance of being able to actually scratch underneath of that 10 when you try to hold that. So I think he'd probably be a little bit smarter here to just go ahead and send the 4 up the table. See what he decides to do here. And he does elect to go ahead and take that 4-ball up the table. Now he does leave an open shot. That was almost a very well played safety to land up behind that 9. But it was very smart not to take that risk on that 10-ball. When it's sitting that high up out of the pocket, there's a really good chance that you scratch. Now Josh will go ahead and just draw this across for the 5. All right. Comes up a little shallow, but I think he's still got a decent shot here. Now the 6 is that gray ball that you see sitting between the 7 and the 8. Colors are a little bit different on these Dynaspheres. And he does leave himself an open shot on this 6. Now I cannot quite tell how high above that side pocket he is. I don't believe this is a shot that he wants to take on. He may elect to just play this thin and try to find a safe spot either behind the 9, or honestly, he could even try to come up behind this 10 and this 8. That way he's got some distance between him and the 6 even when he does leave the shot. So let's see what he does. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure that, I don't think he was actually trying to take on the safe there. I think he tried to take on that shot and just beat out the corner pocket. It did look like it was a little high up onto there. And at this point, Andy just has to make sure that he's taking the time, pay attention, know where this cue ball and where this 6 are going to end up. Make sure he has an open shot, and he plays it beautifully. And at this point, Andy is probably just going to go ahead and just play a stop shot here on the 6 ball and take this 8-10 combination, because the combination does count today. They are allowing an early 10 ball. He goes ahead and calls it, sets down on his shot, strokes through it clean, strokes through it all the way. Make sure that he doesn't pop shot that. That's where a lot of players do mess up. When they take those combos, they try to fire them in. You want to hit them with some speed, some pace, so that you don't leave the object ball sitting in the corner pocket, but you don't want to pop it. Like Gives Andy a 2-1 lead over Josh. Andy setting up pretty much the same break spot. We'll see if maybe he takes a little bit off of it or maybe puts a little less draw. See if he can manage to keep himself out of that corner pocket on the scratch this time. Andy settles in for the break. And you can see Andy definitely changed up his break. He went ahead and went to let that cue ball go forward just to make sure that he wasn't trying to draw it back on a stun like he did before. He did realize that is going to take it a little bit different. I do believe he caught the edge of it a little more than he meant to. That's what actually sent that cue ball coming around the table. And that little kiss may have actually gotten Josh here. I think he just got himself stuck behind the 3 just a little bit. He's just going to go ahead and swerve around it. And placed nicely. At this point, Andy does get a chance to come back to the table to see if he can make something happen here. This again is another one of those shots. You just got to pay attention. He's going to go ahead and take this 7, but he wants to make sure that cue ball does not end up floating up onto the long rail. And all right, well, he hits it with a little extra pace just to make sure, because that's usually what happens, catches guys a lot, is they end up bringing that ball onto the long rail and they don't have a shot. All right. And again, Andy just takes what the table gives him. Didn't try to force the issue. Go ahead and just get an open shot on that 3 ball. Make sure you're making your object ball. And you can see by the little contour to the face, he's trying to figure out where he wants to take this cue ball. Probably going to go ahead and just send it up 2 rails underneath the 8. Yeah, and I think he was trying to, but he just played that with a little too much pace for something of that nature. You really got to take your time when you're going to play those rail safeties. Now, the rails here are playing very active, so it is making things a little more difficult to try to set your pace. The surface is not playing as fast as the rails are active, so it does change things around a little bit. At this point, he may try to go ahead and just come between the 8 and 10. No, he just goes ahead and comes near them. So that's fine. He's got a little bit of a back cut here on the 5, nothing horrible. He can actually put himself a little bit of even side spin if he wanted, just to kind of hold himself down for this 6 1/4, just to kind of slow it down. There you go. Because he uses a second rail. But again, these rails are really active. Oh! And there is one of the worst parts, unfortunately, about having a template rack, is you can watch that cue ball just rotate right around behind the 10. And I know he is not happy about that. Now, unfortunately, the 10 is sitting on the template rack, so it wasn't a option to move it without having called over a tournament director. But that always hurts when you know you didn't do anything wrong of your own. Now, I believe he was going to end up safed behind that 10 as it was, but he would not have ended up quite as tucked on it as he did. But nonetheless, Andy stays composed, comes up to the table, and doesn't allow the misfortune of his opponent to bother him. He just has to play as if everything is normal. And he'll go ahead and just come off the rail here for the 9. And again, this is kind of a personal preference. He can try to draw this off. The rails are a little active here. I think my shot personally would be to go ahead and 2-rail this and come back for the 10 in the same pocket. I wouldn't trust holding this with the rails being as active as they are. And he plays 1 rail across, playing for a side pocket shot. I really think if you were going to go ahead and slide under that 10 across that line, I would have just played to go ahead and come into the rail and come 2 rails out. You really get to let the stroke out a little bit more when you play that way, as opposed to trying to hold it across a line underneath. But he does play a beautiful shot, gets it up there into the side pocket, nice and clean, and takes a 3-1 lead. All right, it looks like Jeremy's decided to go ahead and jump in on this commentary as well.
All right.
So now you have somebody that can actually tell you what's happening.
Well, well, well.